Hey everybody, we're just outside of beautiful Hot Springs, North Carolina, and more importantly, we're back on the road. Welcome back. It's been a long time, and I'm sure you're probably wondering where we've been and what's been going on, and I do have an explanation for you here in a few seconds, but first, check out this view. It's pretty sweet. So we've got our setup here. This may be like an old fire tower pad or something, but it's a perfect little parking area. We're getting some last minute solar before the rain comes in, and over that way are some beautiful mountains. Pretty nice view. Hopefully we'll catch the storm rolling in. Anyways, I know it's been, 4 months now, which is kind of crazy. You're probably wondering what's going on. So I'll try to sum it up as best I can, as quickly as I can. Basically, after the last video, and really for the entire length of time we were traveling in the truck camper, I had been feeling pretty weird. I was low energy, my mood would swing all the time. I was eating a ton of food and I was drinking a ton of water. Despite doing that, I was still losing a lot of weight. As you can tell, I don't have much weight to lose, so when I was losing weight, it was really taking a toll on me. But it got to a point that it was bad enough that I felt that I needed to see a doctor. So Tara and I booked it back to North Carolina and got an appointment with the local doctor. I walked in, and within 15 minutes I walked out with a diagnosis of diabetes, which took me by complete surprise. It's not something I would have ever expected, mostly because I didn't know much about it other than type 2 diabetes. But turns out I was diagnosed with type 1.5, they call it, or LADA, L-A-D-A, which is like late adult onset diabetes. And it's an autoimmune disease, so my immune system is attacking my beta cells that produce insulin, so I'm not able to cope with ingesting large amounts of carbohydrates or sugars, and it sends my blood sugar sky high. At the office, they took my levels, and it was off of their charts. It was like 312 or something, and it's just extremely high, and it must have been that way for at least a few months, if not more than that, maybe up to a year. I really don't know. They seemed to be kind of shocked that I hadn't had any sort of traumatic event or crazy episodes with blood sugar that high, but yeah, it took me by surprise, took them by surprise. In order to lower my blood sugar, I take a nightly dose of what's called basal insulin, which is like your baseline throughout the day insulin that helps you deal with carbs throughout the day. And I'm also eating a pretty strict keto diet, if you will. It's not necessarily keto, but I'm just not eating any sugars and very few carbs. So I'm limiting the amount of fruit I eat, and I basically don't eat anything with added sugar in it. I'm back to normal blood sugars levels. I'm feeling a lot better. My energy levels are back, and my vision has gotten a lot better somehow. But it's definitely, I've had my ups and downs just trying to assess what's happening to me and what it means for my future. And there was a time where I was like, can I even hike again? Can I travel again? And I definitely think that's all possible. Obviously, we're in the truck camper now, so that's happening. And then hopefully in August, we'll be getting back on the AT once it's a little cooler again and finishing off the rest of that trail that we haven't done yet. I've had my up and down days, my struggles, and that's primarily why I haven't been making videos. I just have not felt up to it. So I have a lot of backlog of footage to edit and release later, but we're also on the road right now creating new footage, which you'll be seeing today on this episode. And speaking of which, I guess we should just get to it. That's enough talk about boring diabetes and health issues. Long story short, glad to be back. Glad you're watching. Let's get back into it. Oh, and before I forget, I wanted to thank all of the patrons that have stuck with us throughout this gap in content. Thanks so much for being there, and to the new patrons that have joined up in the meantime. I'm thrilled that you all are stoked on our content, and hopefully we can bring more to you starting now.
Oh, what?
Fork and an avocado.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome, dear viewers, to the mountains of eastern Kentucky. Why don't you sit by the fire and stay a while? Tara and I recently took a trip up to my grandparents' property in Kentucky to spend time with family and catch up. And although we weren't really planning on documenting this part of the trip, Tara ended up taking a lot of good video, so I figured I'd just tell you the story of this property and how I came to know it growing up while I show you some of the video she shot. I first started coming to this property when I was really young, and my parents and I would go up here and meet up with my grandparents and my great-grandmother and any other family that happened to be around at the time, and it seemed like there was always a lot of family around. So my great-grandmother lived here until she was 101 years old, and we would meet up on her birthday and have big family reunions, and there was a lot of family around, so I have a lot of good memories tied to this place. My great-grandmother lived here and had my grandfather here, along with 11 other brothers and sisters, so you can imagine how much family that's led to over the years. When the house was still around, I remember 40-plus people packed into this tiny little house, and like 20 people packed in the kitchen, and just all sorts of good country cooking going on. Stay safe. Unfortunately, a few years ago, the house that was here burnt down, so we don't have that to meet up in anymore. But of course, we all love to camp up here, so we'll come up and camp and meet up that way. As you can see, my grandparents are camping in the back of their truck this last weekend, and they're going on 90 years old, so to me, that's pretty impressive.
Lay down. I'm getting in myself. I don't need you to help me. He's got his hearing aids out and he can't hear. I'm going to crawl right out through there and come back.
I hope you would. I'd not leave you out there. Get in here.
Coming here when I was younger definitely had an impact on my love of the outdoors, and I had so much fun here. We would wade out in the creek all day, building dams. My grandfather and I would go shoot guns. We'd go wade up the creek and go fishing, climb up the mountains, found a bear den one time and climbed in it. We'd swing on grapevines. There's an old coal mine. All sorts of fun memories tied to this place. So it definitely had an impact on me, and I'm sure it led to both my love of the outdoors and eventually my love of thru hiking. You might remember from one of our previous truck camper episodes on the Natchez Trace, I found a horse tree and remembered climbing one when I was younger. Well, this property is where that horse tree is, and this is it. Horse tree.
Giddy up.
I'm often looking forward to the next adventure or what's coming up next, but being up here and being with family kind of reminded me sometimes it's important just to look back on where you've been and what you've done before and how that's impacted you and changed who you are today. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this little stroll through history and Kentucky mountains, and we're moving onwards now, right after a little bath in the creek.
Bye, Bob.
Bye.
Well, how is it?
Just grand and cold.
Grand and cold.
Well, we're back on the road. We just spent some time, as you saw, in the hills of Kentucky at my grandparents' property with a bunch of family, and that was a lot of fun. But now that we're back on the road solo, or duo, whatever you want to call us, we're starting to film again, and our first stop is Natural Tunnel State Park in Virginia. Natural Tunnel State Park.
Join us.
Well, guess we're heading home. So you can hike down to the tunnel, you can take a chairlift down to the tunnel, and there's this Lover's Leap trail that gives you an overhead view of the tunnel. That's what we're doing first. Then we'll see what's next from there. So I'm betting that Lover's Leap is around the little gorge here, right up there. Let's go see.
Oh, now we're gonna miss the train. Hurry, run.
It's a car.
What? Wow.
More to go.
Hold me, Jack.
That's where we were, right over there. Can't even see the tracks from up here. The rock that makes up the natural tunnel is limestone and dolostone, or dolomite. Both are influenced by water, so over time they can dissolve into the acidity of the water and the chemical erosion. Well, we just loaded up on the chairlift. Here's the view.
Oh my gosh.
Tara's a little nervous.
I'm not totally afraid of heights. I just know all the ways I could die right now. That's all.
There's really only one way you would die.
No, there are a few.
Falling. It's getting even steeper.
Straight down.
All right, no tunnel is complete without an echo check. Well, when we were on top earlier, we were right at the peak of this little ridge up here. Pretty cool. Feels like something's blowing in. They just told us that if it starts thundering, they won't be able to run the chairlift. So we're gonna see where this goes, and then we're gonna head back up before we lose our ride. Well, you can't smell, but it looks like they just redid the roof with cedar shingles. It smells really good in here. Now come in now, dinner's ready.
Sit up.
Yeah?
Don't touch the mirror.
Why?
Because it's thundering.
All right, well, it started raining, but we got the last ride on the chairlift. So we're riding up in the rain. Hopefully it doesn't come down too hard.
Oh,
Ooh.
God. We're not supposed to be on here.
And it's thundering.
So we're not touching any metal.
Whew.
Ah!
Okay, we're getting wet.
Oh, Lord. We should not look to the cabin. Well.
Live and learn.
The behind us. Well, we already took our shower. No. Yeah, I'm soaked. Are we gonna wait it out for a second or just run? Man, how steamy.
Well, within a few minutes of us getting off the chairlift, the rain stopped and it's now sunny again. But not before we were pretty much completely soaked, and my hat funneled the rain down my back and down my crack, so it's going to be a fun drive from here on out. And speaking of that, we're getting back in the car. We could camp here, but we've explored a lot of the park already, so we're moving on, and we're going to be headed towards Johnson City, Tennessee on the road. We're going out for our first post-vaccination dinner without masks, and it also happens to be our residence for the night. Can you guess where we are? That's right, it's Cracker Barrel.
So I got my good clothes on. Let's go, babe. Fancy date.
Getting fancy.
It's Meatloaf Tuesday.
Well, we had a peaceful night and a good dinner and breakfast. And now we're hitting the road.
Oh,
And I'm hitting my head.